support that. I'll just share it with them initially, and if there's any other local authority, but we're not going to be sticking it publicly, you know. Good. I can see people. Vicky Shenton already knows how to use the chat. Thank you, Vicky. Please do use the chat on the side. And so my first person I'm going to hand over to is Emma Warwick. She's head of service for business development and change at Hull City Council. And as I say, was given an award for their TP excellence. And so I'm going to hand over to Emma, if that's okay. Croeso, welcome, Emma, to TPAS Cymru Network event.
Good morning. Thank you. Apologies in advance if I just have to cough occasionally. I think everyone's been having it recently, and so I will try to keep speaking and not cough, but it might happen. Hopefully, David, in a second, will share my slides. I will just explain the background here. So Tracy from North Lanarkshire has a real background here. As much as I would like to say Hull looks just like this with the delightful sand dunes and things, then not quite. It's very attractive, but doesn't have any sand dunes. So just while David's getting the slides up, I will explain. For those who don't know, Hull City Council is a unitary authority. It is a city council. The reason why I make that point is that different tenant engagement opportunities will work differently in different areas, and we are very urban. And so some of the things that work for us might work less well when your tenants are really spread out across a large rural area. So I will just make that point. So Hull City Council, the city of Hull, roughly speaking, about 5 by 7 miles. So it's quite a tight urban boundary. We have 23,000 homes, so that's about 1 in 5 in the city of Hull. So we're a big local authority stockholding landlord. We've got a lot of tenants, and that provides us with an opportunity because we managed to find amongst quite that many lots of people who want to engage in different ways. Have I got control to move this on, Dave?
I believe you have, but I don't know if you can.
I'm gonna try and press the buttons, but it doesn't appear to be doing anything.
Okay, I can move.
You might have to press the buttons for me.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what you practice in the session before.
No,
it never works on the day, does
it? Just not doing it. Okay. Yeah, I will just mention that bottom point. So it's important for us to offer a range of opportunities so that tenants and residents, we do cover residents to a degree as well as our own tenants, can contribute in the ways in which they wish and as little or as much time as they wish. So to give that element of choice is really important in terms of being able to attract people to participate with you. If you could move us on. So anyone such as Powers is not able to be here who wants to follow up and find out a little bit more, then you can either Google on the Hull City Council website or scan that QR code there to go and look at our Tenants Compact. That gives an overview of some of the activities that we offer. And one of the helpful things about that, having just made the point that it's important to think about what your tenants and residents want to do, how much time they want to give, how often they want to give it, how much detailed knowledge in terms of background. We have these little symbols that we put next to things that kind of show how intensive it is, or, you know, so that people have an idea of the choices available. And that's quite a useful starting point if you want to map something out and say, what might we be able to offer and what might it mean for those wanting to engage with those activities. Okay, so if you move us on, we kind of split our activities into different kinds, and some of them are the ones that you'll be more familiar with, and we also have some more digital offerings. So traditional activities, then this is more your people sitting around in a committee meeting kind of stuff, is more what springs to mind when you talk about the traditional activities. However, I like to think we offer quite a range of these as well. So the people sitting in a room, that's why I said, look, we're quite a small, tight-knit boundary in Hull, and it's not so hard for us to get people to come and sit in the room because you can go on one bus journey and you can be in the centre of town in half an hour, no matter where it is that you live in our area. That doesn't work for everyone. So I'm kind of making that point here. So we do have some things that do involve people coming into the city centre and sitting in a room and talking stuff over. In terms of the kind of stuff, then some of that is, I'll talk about it a bit more later on, but some of that is special interest things where people have chosen a topic that they want to particularly engage with, and some of it is more general stuff. However, it's important not to just expect people to come to you. So even our traditional activities, then some of that is us going out to them where they live. I know some people are cautious about the term estates, but some of our neighbourhoods are very much, we have a concentration of council housing in particular neighbourhoods, and so it is worth us going to a particular neighbourhood because there's a lot of our tenants there and it's more meaningful to them to go to them. So we do some of our activities such as kind of focus group type activity by going to them, and not just if it's to do with their geographical area, like we're about to build some new housing within your estate or neighbourhood or whatever. Some of it is just generally, what do you feel about the policies on pets, but doing it in their neighbourhood. What I would also say is a kind of a traditional activity, but it attracts a different kind of tenant, is people who don't necessarily want to be involved in I want to be very clearly involved in the decision making of your organisation. Some of it is, I feel that my home that you offer me, how I can be involved in that is in my immediate neighbourhood. So I can go and be the eyes and ears on my estate, my neighbourhood, and say, actually, you're not doing enough there with your partners to ensure that the bins are emptied often enough or the grass is cut often enough. I live in a block and I want to go around the block to check that the communal cleaning has been done correctly and whether there are any repairs outstanding. Those kind of activities where people do very, I suppose, physical and hands-on kind of things in their own neighbourhoods, and that's being engaged with us as well. So we offer quite a few of those kind of things. And I'll go into some of the other things that we do in terms of specifics of sort of panels and groups that people can work on as well later. So if you move us on, then we offer some digital choices as well for people. So obviously some of those things where I say it's relatively easy for us. We have a policy about reimbursement. We can give somebody a bus fare, and for £2 we can get people into a meeting with us. It's not going to work for everyone, and so we do offer a number of our opportunities that are still a traditional activity, but via Zoom or Teams more often, actually, because that works better for us, Teams, and bringing people in, and it also helps sometimes with things like room availability and so on, so that we can do it at different times of day to suit people. So some of those we do, it's just we offer the traditional thing, but we offer it online. But we do quite a bit on social media. That's not necessarily all that obvious in terms of it being tenant engagement. What we want to do is try and work alongside what it is that people are interested in around their home and neighbourhood and what we provide. So, for example, we will post the gardening tips because one of the things that we do is encourage tenants every year to be involved in our garden competition, because that improves the neighbourhood in general. It improves the pride in the neighbourhood. There are people who would get engaged in the garden competition who definitely wouldn't go and sit in a room to discuss the pets policy. And so we have some social media stuff, some of which is very much, please answer our survey on whether your repair service has been any good or not. But we also have stuff that's more orientated towards people's interests, personal interests, so that they can find a way that's still relevant to engaging with us as their landlord and what they can do around their home and their community. We do lots of consultations that we do digitally. We have an app. We're probably not exploiting it to the best of the ability at the moment, but that has some of the facilities to have that ongoing conversation with people on it as well. I will explain multi-story living TV, which may not be applicable to all, but we have 19 blocks of high rise. So we have a lot of flats. I said we have about 23,000 homes, more than 5,500 of them are flats, but of those flats, about 1,500 of them are in high rise. And in these blocks, obviously, you have an audience in one place, big audience in one place. And so for that, we have something called multi-story living TV in some of those blocks where we have a display screen in the lobby, and that is used as an engagement tool for the residents in that block, not just in the lobby, but they can genuinely get to it from their TV as well. So there's a channel, on your smart thing, all those numbers that you never ever get to that are like selling shopping of weird stuff. Then on one of those numbers, our TV channel, it's not that gripping, but it does have things that are relevant to their block. It's like it kind of scrolls round different messages. So it'll say your caretaker today is Steve. Steve's hours are going to be between 2 and 5 today. Here's his picture. Please be aware that the programmed lift works are a week next Tuesday. It'll be out of order between 12 and 1. It has that kind of thing that's very locally applicable, as well as, and don't forget, it's the residents' garden party on the 23rd of July. And, so those kind of things display on our TV. And actually, one of the blocks that's got it also has a door entry system, and you can see the messages on the door entry system as well. So you don't have to go down to the lobby to look at these fascinating messages about your caretaker. So we do have multi-story living TV. It's not as expensive as we thought. It's not incredibly cheap either, but it costs about £1.50 for a really big screen that's like appropriately robust, shall we say, for the kind of locations that it'll be placed in. And then the management of it, there is a bit of a content management system behind it, but that's relatively low tech. It is kind of like uploading some slides every so often, so it's not quite as expensive as you might think, although it took a while to work out what we needed to do for that. I will also mention GovNotify, because the people on this call are local authorities. GovNotify is a service that is offered by central government, so it's sort of subsidised in the sense of it's because everyone's grouped together, it becomes a lot cheaper to create a service that sends out text messages. You don't need a lot of specialist IT skills. You can have specialist IT skills to use this and integrate directly with your housing management systems and so on, but you can start very basic with somebody who's got some vague nous about how to work a spreadsheet and say, right, what I want to do is send text messages to these 300 residents to tell them the URL of where our latest survey is. It is quite easy to get started on that. And as a local authority, you can just go and sign yourselves up. There is a cost to it, but only over a certain threshold. So I think you get 25,000 texts a year free anyway. So it's worth, if you're just wanting to dabble your toes in the water of something that's fairly easy to do, low risk, low cost, have a go at GovNotify, and that's a good way of text messaging out. So those are some of our digital activities. If you move us on, David. Okay, appreciate that we've put on here TPAS England standards. I don't know whether it be different for Wales. I would have said likely to be much the same sort of themes. I'm going to try and align now some of what we do to these themes that are used by TPAS to explain where some of our opportunities lie. So we'll talk about governance and transparency first. So if you move us on. Has it slowed down? That's it. Okay, so governance and transparency, this is probably the most kind of traditional bit in terms of how can our tenants directly influence what we do. So one of the key things is that we as the landlord, we as the local authority, as opposed to we as the landlord, we as the local authority invite members of our tenants forum twice a year to go to the scrutiny meeting that oversees our landlord service. And they go on their own and they write their own report, and they can say what they like directly to the elected members about what it is that we do. Very fortunate that you can actually go and watch the one from last week online, where they said lots of nice things about us. So that's good. But they can say whatever they like. They can raise their concerns at that. And just having that opportunity to say, actually, you can go, you can put in front of the members what it is that you like, is an easy way of saying, here's an opportunity for influence. Your tenants, if they have some kind of group, can decide what it is that they want to raise to the attention of members and bring that at those opportunities. Then we have some, because we have a formal tenants forum, so we have volunteers amongst our tenants who say, yes, I would like to be involved, yes, I would like to come to meetings regularly and things. Then they share those with people like the leader of the council, so in the minutes of their meetings and so on. They provide representatives to various of our meetings and activities. So, for example, we currently are improving parts of our service because we have some poor performance in particular pockets, and we've got a service improvement board that the chief exec's on and the portfolio holders on and so on. And so is the chair of the tenants forum. So she comes to that and she gives her four penneth to represent the tenants at that. So there are some formal meetings that our tenants directly participate in. They are also called in to put representatives on other particular, I'm going to say, activities. So, for example, when we have a recruitment for a significant post, then they will have an additional panel. So there will be people who are formally trained in recruitment who are doing that, officers and so on, but they will be doing a particular part of the recruitment. So they will be providing feedback on the candidates, such as, they've done a presentation to us on this, how did we rate that? And they will feed in as part of the recruitment. If you move us on then, David. So scrutiny, this is different from council scrutiny. This is, instead of the bit where I said tenants can go to the scrutiny sessions with members, this is where tenants scrutinise us. So firstly, and our chair of the tenants forum would definitely want me to say this. Firstly, we don't tell the tenants, go and scrutinise X. The tenants tell us, they say, we're not very happy with the emergency repairs service at the moment. We would like to scrutinise that. So they choose something and we facilitate them to scrutinise what might be better in that, what might be changed, is there any sort of policy thing at the heart of it, or is it more of an operational issue and things. So they scrutinise things and we put forward the resources to do that. So we provide them with a place to do that. We send the officers to provide some evidence to them and so on. So we facilitate that for them. They also scrutinise, as I said, things that we do on the ground. So we have well over 100 local area champions. They do things like, we call them patchwalks or estate walks, where they go round and they grade things. So things like, excuse me, we buy in our building cleaning service, and so that kind of thing, where it's like, has it met the standards, and we feed that back in terms of the contract on that. Is the repair service good enough? Is the grass cutting good enough? They help sort of say how well we're doing on any of these things and give marks regularly by going and inspecting stuff for us. Yeah, if you move us on, that's probably enough on that one. Business and strategy stuff, we do some stuff here directly with tenants. Normally that's at the point where we've been going through something ourselves, kind of professionally, like a new policy document, and then we get the tenants' views on those. So that tends to be at different stages in it. It's not always throughout, because the level of the detail isn't necessarily the kind of thing that all tenants would want to be involved with, but there will be opportunities as part of those before things get approved. One of the steps in it is always to get the tenant's experience and how they would feel about those. Moves on. Complaints. So I assume that the Housing Ombudsman Service stuff applies equally in Wales. I'm not sure about that, but I assume it does.
Different ombudsman, right. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same principles. So the ombudsman that covers the housing service in England recently changed the rules so you can have a maximum of a 2-step process. Previously, we had a 3-step process where, excuse me, essentially officers looked at something at stage 1. If there was something that made it necessary for an appeal, like there was some new evidence that had come to light, however, there would be a stage 2 that an officer would look at. And then if people were still unhappy, there could be a stage 3. And at that point, the complainant could choose whether they wanted elected members to look at that or whether they wanted tenants, peers, to look at that before it went to the ombudsman. Our ombudsman has now said you can't have more than 2 stages. So we don't do that anymore. But what we do is at the second stage, we do have the opportunity for the officers to discuss with the tenant peer group if there's any areas where it's like, actually, is this reasonable or not reasonable as a response. So we do have some opportunities there with what they call designated panel. And designated panel also helps us to complete our self-assessment that we have to do every year for the ombudsman that says, are we following their guidance properly? So they help us complete that. And we also produce a quarterly feedback report on all of our complaints where we go through all of our complaints and try and pick out the trends and what we need to change and what we've learned from that. And the tenants get involved in that every quarter to say, actually, these are the bits of learning that we should be taking forward this time. So we did quite a lot with tenants on complaints. If you move us on. I've mentioned quite a few things on here already. Information and communication. This one is one that tenants are very interested in. So they're quite interested in the different ways that we can use to communicate with them. Different ones have strong feelings about what they prefer, and they can be often quite different. So as I say, some people love the multi-story living TV, some people love text messaging, some people really want their print newsletter. So we have quite a range of opportunity, and we also have them involved quite closely with our customer services people because we have a contact centre, and as I'm sure everyone will say about contact centres, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes you have to wait too long on the line, sometimes the person that you speak to doesn't know quite enough about your specific case, and so they have a lot of feedback and they get regularly involved because that's a commission service with the people who we commission that from to give their feedback on those areas for improvement. So they have quite a lot of input into the different ways we go about communicating, including setting some of the topics. So whilst there may be things that we want to share as a landlord in order to keep it engaging, they will often say things that they want including. So if we're doing, for example, a print newsletter, they will say, we're particularly bothered by nuisance motorbikes on our estate, and we want to put in an article about dealing with antisocial behaviour. So you might want to say, we're obliged to tell you about rent setting. As one of the things that we want to tell them, they say, yeah, but I'm only going to read that part of the newsletter if I get this one on one of the other pages, because that's what I'm interested in. So they help us to shape what the content should look like. If you move us on. What are resources for engagement? Actually, you know what? I think the biggest thing in this is not necessarily resources as in, money and staff. The fact that everyone's job who works for the landlord is to be engaged with this. So when I say, and sometimes we're doing a review and they sit and work with the officers on it, that's, our officers, it's part of their normal job to engage with tenants, and they genuinely see it as that. And so that is part of the resource that you have already got. You've already got an officer who may say, my job is to be a tenancy officer, or my job is to organise these repairs, but actually part of their job is to engage with tenants. And so part of the staff resource for this is just carved out of, that's part of their job anyway. We do, however, have a small team of people who do this. I think it's 4.8 FTE that we have for 23,000 tenants. And of those, 2 of those now are our dedicated digital officers. So we do have some resources that are our tenant engagement officers, but as I say, it's because it's carved out of everyone's role. We do have a small budget to give to tenants for part of this. So we offer support to set up tenants and residents associations, so TARAs. So they end up being funded by about 300 quid a year that we give them. So when I say it's a small budget, it really isn't a massive amount, but it's enough for them to set up their stationery and their buy a small, tablet and things to do things on. And so we give them about that much. Sometimes it's a little bit different because sometimes we give them things in kind, like they might run some kind of community thing, and we give them the use of one of our garages for rent free, or that to store their stuff in. Or so sometimes it's in kind, so it's quite small amounts of money. What they're more interested in is things like us helping them to write a constitution, get them a bank account, that kind of thing, so that they're properly constituted, so that then they can go and apply for grants to do things in their neighbourhood. And so it's the actual help to do it that is probably more than the financial value of it, which is quite small, that we give, but it's facilitation of their own activities that's important in terms of resource. In terms of our reimbursement policy, it's not hugely generous in the sense of it is, you get your £2 bus fare back. We do, however, make an effort to ensure that people are never out of pocket. So, for example, we might have mums who want to engage with us, and so we will pay the costs of childcare whilst a mum is attending, or so those kind of things. It's a genuine reimbursement thing. It's not just travel reimbursement, it's any cost that you have incurred to be involved as part of this. And then the final bit, I think, was community and wider engagement. So what do the Taras and others go out and do? They do a lot of stuff, I wouldn't say for us, they do it for them, but they're a good way for us to then use them as a channel to talk to other people who we wouldn't normally reach. So we go out into the community, we do dropping things at other people's sessions. I don't mean we just, if we've got a block of flats, then we go and sit in the block of flats. We do that, but we do things like we go to the local primary schools for the after school drop-in events and those kind of, so we go out into the settings. But the Taras also do that kind of stuff for us. They talk to their neighbours, they give the feedback back to us from those kind of things. Okay, I think we're nearly at the end because I've covered quite a lot there. So just to explain, so we, as David very kindly said, we are an exemplar for this work. We are actually a 3 times exemplar for this. So we've got our exemplar 3 times now. What we feel is important about doing this is appreciate that some people just need to get started and not to go for an exemplar, but what we do feel is important is to make sure we offer a range of things, and part of our gaining an exemplar is trying to take into account that people want a range of different things. They don't necessarily want us to dictate to them the way you will engage is this, come to this meeting, come to this focus group, or fill in this survey. They're all individual people with their own strengths, their own interests. That you will be surprised at just how much insight they have got about all kinds of things that you would never have thought of. So one of the key things I would have said about gaining an exemplar is to be able to offer a wide range of opportunity to suit what it is that your tenants want. Okay, I think that's about the last one. Okay, yeah, if anyone does want to go through the accreditation process, it is quite hard work though, to gather all the evidence and things, but I appreciate some people will just be starting out as opposed to wanting to get that far. Yeah. Okay. I think, are we doing any questions now, or are we doing it after Tracy? Oh, you're on mute, I think. Maybe you're just on mute for me.
Yep, sorry. Sure. I'd rather do the questions after Tracy, because I think she'll cover things and then we can combine them, if that makes sense. And also
Okay.
chat as well at the meantime.
All
So
right.
thank you, Emma. I think there was so much in there. I've got 4 questions I want to ask as well, but I thought it was excellent, and it shows why you were an exemplar at TPAS England's event. Thank you for that. So I think if we can move on to Tracy, and then we can have a bit of a chat at the end then. So Tracy is the Tenant Participation Manager, North Lanarkshire Council up in Scotland. We've got a little bit of a feedback loop, so I think maybe I'll mute myself once Tracy starts. Welcome, Tracy, and I'm going to hand over to you if that's okay, and I'll mute myself.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm just going to try and share my presentation, but it was really interesting hearing Emma's, because already quite a lot we do kind of the same for such a different area. We do a lot the same, which is good to know. But I'm the same as you, David. I've been taking a lot of scribbles, and I'm probably going to my head of house and to ask for multi-story TV, because it sounds amazing. So I'm going to just try and share the presentation, and then I'll rattle through things. So let me see. Right. Sorry, I'll just be a minute. I'm just trying to find the presentation. I'm going to put it off mute. Right. Is the PowerPoint up on the screen?
It is, but not in slide view yet. It's still in PowerPoint.
Okay. This here? Right.
Yep, perfect.
Is that it now?
Yep.
Right. Okay, so thank you, everybody. You can see IT is not my strong point. So I've been asked just to talk about best practice in TP, and as David says, it kind of came off the back of us getting our TPAS accreditation. So in order to look at our best practice, I took a wee bit of time just to reflect on what we do, really, reflect on our team, our stakeholders, the communities we serve, what works well, what achievements, challenges that we've experienced, and then to kind of look at what our future plans is. So I kind of hope to cover most of that today. So the presentation today will give you a wee bit of background. I'll look at what operational structure, a wee bit about the team, a bit about what progression, things to get involved, achievements and challenges, what best practice, and then future plans. So first of all, a wee bit of background information. So we are North Lanarkshire Council. We have a population of 341,000. We're the 4th largest local authority area in Scotland. And we have just under 37,000 council homes. So we serve quite a big, vast area. And of that, we have 38 registered tenants groups, but we work with individuals on top of that. So that just gives you a wee kind of insight into who we work with and the areas we cover, really. So a bit of background information. Our actual team that sit within North Lanarkshire Council is actually quite new. It's relatively new. We've only been in North Lanarkshire Council for 6 years. The actual council itself, it's made up of 4 housing localities, and the TP team is responsible for supporting the whole area. So prior to us joining in 2018, an 18-month review of tenant participation activities was carried out, and it was agreed that TP activities would be best placed in-house with a greater emphasis on locality-based approaches to engagement and tenant involvement. So after 14 years of serving North Lanarkshire Council, North Lanarkshire's contract with the TPAS, which is Tenant Information Service, they had a separate tenant participation project. So there was an external contract that delivered all TP for 14 years. The review saw that contract come to an end on March 2018. And from that, a new tenant participation team was established. So that consisted of 2 tenant participation officers, an admin assistant, and the TP manager, which myself. But a big condition of that review was that tenant scrutiny should remain independent, and has been ever since. So that was the kind of, it was quite a delicate time when the review was undertaken. It was pre my time in the council, but it was a huge review, and obviously people had their reservations about losing the external service and the independent part of it. So the team going in-house, but tenant scrutiny would remain independent. So the operational structure, this is just a wee bit about how we work. So at the top, there is NLC's tenant participation team, but parallel to that is North Lanarkshire Federation. And you'll see behind me, this is their offices I'm in. So North Lanarkshire Federation is 16 years old, and it is the umbrella organisation that sits above all our tenants and residents groups. So they look at things for a kind of more strategic level, and for a kind of council point of view, everything gets fed through the federation. So North Lanarkshire Council's tenant participation team and North Lanarkshire Federation very much work hand in hand. And then we split the area into north and south. So we have a tenant participation officer that covers the north and south of North Lanarkshire. And then that's just the areas it's broke down. This slide was made about 4 weeks ago, and already it's out of date because we've got another 2 new groups. So the totals of groups come to 36, but we've actually got 38 groups now. So it shows the team's constantly working and out there kind of engaging with the communities. So that's the actual registered tenants groups we work with, but we've got a database of individuals as well. So meet the team. You've got myself, Julie and Nancy, which basically do the exact same job, but just split it into north and south localities. But they're happy to cover each other. And then when we do wide scale events, it's very much the team that come together. And I also kind of cover a lot of their group meetings and things like that. Just because we get such a vast area to cover, we basically all need to kind of work together. We've got Caroline, who's the admin assistant. And then just in August, we've took on a new admin assistant, which is a modern apprentice, so it's Callum, who we've got for a year. So it's very much given us an insight into the views of young people. And Callum is also a young tenant, so it's really good to kind of get it from that point of view as well. From starting in 2018, we had quite a bit of kind of progression. So when we were reviewing what we've done, it's very much kind of came in stages, as I would say. So year one, it was very much about establishing a new team, getting the independent scrutiny support in place, and we looked to increase tenant satisfaction. And we held a series of north and south events, engagement events, just to kind of get our name out there and to make people know that it was a new service within North Lanarkshire. So although we already knew a lot of the tenants, they kind of very much knew us for the kind of previous guise of what was the project. So now it was kind of in-house. So it was very much about kind of slowly embedding into the council life as well. Year two was very much about improving tenant engagement. We launched NL and Bloom Garden Awards. So North Lanarkshire Council always did garden awards, but it was very much just a kind of forgotten subject. It was like just piggybacked onto another event, but we took it upon ourselves to make it a big event, and every year it's getting bigger and bigger. We do a big celebration event, and it's very much about engaging with tenants in a different way. So this helps us engage with tenants that maybe isn't interested in joining a group. We consulted on tenants to co-produce what would be our new tenant participation strategy. And we did very much new interactive tenants conferences. So we were very much making a name for ourselves and getting kind of more embedded to be what is the new TP team. And then in year three, we had plans in place to launch what would be the new tenant participation strategy. which was called Involving Tenants Improving Services. And then the dreaded COVID came. So everything we had planned to launch for new strategy and, all the kind of work we were doing in year 1 and year 2, kind of slowly building ourselves up, literally everything got put in pause, I suppose. So we very much, for kind of then onwards, year 4, we had to adapt our services and ensure that what services could remain would remain. And we continued to support the tenants that we could do. We just did it for afar. We kind of changed to digital services. But also as a team, because we couldn't do our kind of typical out in the community work, our frontline work, we supported a lot of other services in need in the council. We helped establish a contact centre for those in need with COVID, and then a homeless helpline. So we kind of very much used our skills but put it in a different way. And we tapped into Connecting Scotland funding to try and get a lot of our tenants groups and a lot of our tenants in retirement housing to get online and get digital. So that was a big shift for the TP team. So where our plans paused, we couldn't deliver tenant participation as usual form. So we adapted, we very much adapted, and we adapted quickly. We continued our activities, but just very differently. Throughout the whole period of COVID, we did wellbeing calls to each of our tenants, tenant reps, tenant groups, and it was very much just about kind of checking in, but keeping that momentum going. And I think it was quite hard to plan because you didn't know the length of time you were going to be out for. So it was very much kind of every 3 months reviewing things and just kind of trying to keep that going. We continued to support North Lanarkshire Federation, and immediately they switched to online meetings. So any strategic business that had to happen still happened, and we very much kind of rolled our sleeves up and got on with it. Our food for thought sessions and our open meetings and consultations all continued, but we just did it online. So it continued, but continued a bit differently. We used that time to increase our social media presence. We did planned focus campaigns, so mental health awareness, International Women's Day, COVID-19 support, Scottish Housing Day. So we very much, if there's a kind of hook to try and kind of get that engagement going, we try and do that. And we continue that to this day. We supported a lot of tenants to get online through Connecting Scotland funding. We did intergenerational learning as well, so younger people sharing their skills and knowledge. We were retirement housing tenants, and we supported loads of other services that was most in need. So we used our time productively, I suppose. So this is just 2 quotes for 2 different tenants that we're able to get. We were able to get devices and Wi-Fi units to get them online. So the first one, with libraries closed and no access to Wi-Fi, the digital support being offered to me will offer me a means for me to keep in touch and get involved, as well as keep up to date on housing issues. Speaking to others online and being able to give my views, it will help combat loneliness and give a purpose to my days. And then the next one, I cannot thank the TP team enough. They've given me a new laptop with internet and showed me how to use it. They even done a dummy run of an online meeting as I was nervous to join in. Since getting online, I've attended many meetings and sessions, giving me purpose again. So, I mean, that kind of shows just the impact that being able to get people online made, and it was a bit of a lifeline for a lot of our tenants. So this is just a wee photo that I always love to share. This was one of our first meetings online. It was very much a learning curve for us all. And the ages, I think in that we had ages for somebody in their 20s right up to somebody in their 80s, basically for every year. So it was really good to kind of show, and we just all kind of embraced what we could do. So tenant engagement was very much at the forefront of what we did. We just did it very differently. So to continue our timeline of progression after COVID, so it was very much about COVID recovery and what we do and where we're going to end up. So year 5 of our time being in North Lanarkshire, so it was very much about reviewing, rebuilding and reconnecting with our tenants and just kind of seeing where we were at. And we were kind of conscious that we maybe have lost some of our groups, lost, you know, the momentum. But actually, we kind of found it was the complete opposite, where there seemed to be more a need, and we're as busy as ever, and actually probably never been as busy. And year 6 was just very much about continuing to develop opportunities to get involved. And we're doing the review. We very much realised that some people were nervous about coming back out, so we had to develop a real kind of variety of opportunities to get involved. So some people maybe dip into smaller stuff, some will come to every event that we've got on, every opportunity. So we very much kind of take it at a level that's right for our tenants. So when we were reviewing, we very much went back to basics, and looked at what we do and how we do it and what's going to work best for our tenants. So we did a database review, and we looked at our training and what training was needed. We looked at our subgroups and got them re-established again. We looked at different networking opportunities, different varieties of tenant engagement. After COVID, we re-established our chairpersons meetings, which I'll go on to talk about. We made a programme of events that people could dip in and out of. Again, with tenant scrutiny, we made sure that get back up and running. And with tenant walkabouts as well, we kind of made sure that was kind of at the forefront of what we do. So our database review, this kind of just gives you a wee insight. This was very much about what groups that was left after COVID and where we should be focusing our work. So it kind of, this is split into our housing localities. So it kind of shows you the high numbers, that's the actual active groups we have, fully constituted active groups. And then the smaller tables, that is groups or areas that's expressed an interest. So we are working with them to potentially become a constituted group. But we are very much of the guys that you may not have enough people, or you may not have people want to take that step to be a fully constituted group. But if there's still a group of tenants that want to be involved in some way, we will still work with them and we'll still support them. So the database review was very important for us to kind of set the scene and know where we were at and know who we were working with and what we had to do. And that kind of carries on, and we review that. I mean, we update it all the time, but we have a full review every 3 months just to make sure we know where we're at, who we're working with. And it also lets us identify any areas that we can tap into that maybe is lacking a group. So it's really good, useful tool for us. We've quickly got our different training back up and running. This is very much tenant-led. So we develop training based on the needs of our tenants and our groups. So the picture on the slide is a site visit. So one of our subgroups is called Ambition Subgroup, and it looks at the ambition for North Lanarkshire, which takes into our new build developments, town centre regeneration, and just the overall plan for North Lanarkshire. So part of the members of the Ambition Subgroup, they went out and they visited. This is a brand new site that is looking at net zero property, and it's looking at underground heating and things like that. So they found out all about that. We, after COVID as well, because we were kind of aware that we got people online, but we want to encourage them to continue to go online. Just because we can meet face to face again, we want to still kind of nurture them and increase their learning. So we have a digital drop-in in the office every week where people can bring their devices and we can try and help them and show them new skills. We have set them up to scrutiny training for anyone that's interested in being a scrutiny panel member. That's delivered externally as well, and that's a proper accredited course that we fund all our tenants to go into if they wish to be part of our scrutiny panel. We also do committee skills training for our new and existing groups as refreshers, because it can be quite daunting starting a group and thinking about office bearer positions, etc. And we also train and help and support our groups to plan any events, their AGMs, public meetings, any planning that they want, help with that as well. So I said earlier, we currently have 3 different subgroups, and these were agreed by our tenants, brought out brought on because he needs in the communities. So you can see it's not just about housing, it's about the communities that they live in and what matters to them. So waste management, that meets quarterly, and one of the tenant participation officers is the lead officer for that. NL Ambition, that looks at the full ambition for North Lanarkshire, and we have roads and street lighting. Again, that's led by another TP officer. And what I must say about these subgroups, although we take the lead with facilitating these meetings, they are attended by tenants and residents from every one of our localities. Each of the meetings have at least 15 people attend, and it's supported through senior management. So the waste and the roads and street lighting, we have the head of community operations and his team that come along and support that. And then the NL Ambition, we have different heads of departments and head of housing that comes to that. So we very much get the buy-in from a lot of senior members of staff, and tenants really appreciate that because they've got that kind of great joint working relationship. And we are currently reviewing our subgroups at the moment just to make sure they can all align and get a consistent approach to them. And through kind of a series of communications and issues raised by tenants, we're looking at developing a brand new subgroup that's going to be looking at our retirement housing. So there'll be a retirement housing subgroup probably in the new year as well. So we're currently looking at that, and we've got the commitment for housing staff to develop that, and they'll support it. So that'll be our fourth subgroup. Networking, we basically try to network with as many people, tenants, groups, organisations as possible, and that comes through different guises. So we do an annual Macmillan Coffee Morning. We invite everybody to that. We have so North Lanarkshire Council's communities team. They have 9 community boards that we encourage our tenants and residents groups to attend. But it's attended by lots of other community groups, and we can attend that as well. So it's very much about networking, finding out what matters to people in their areas, and trying to work together to combat that. We plan an annual tenants conference every year. And that's very, very well attended every year. It's getting bigger and bigger as well. And we have a lot of guest speakers and a lot of different departments come to that, elected members. So we always just try and think of different ways to network. And some may be housing related, some may be kind of more socialising, but it's just about getting our name out there, getting tenants' names out there, and just about kind of making the link between tenants and staff. And again, tenant engagement, we just try to kind of think of all different ways to engage with our tenants. The photo in the middle, this was at one of our conferences. This was tenants voting on what the next scrutiny topic should be. So the Federation and the scrutiny panel came up with 3 different options, and then we got our tenants to vote on it, just like what you would do at ASDA with the wee tokens. So we very much try to kind of engage with our tenants and involve them through every step of the way. That tenant participation strategy as well. We got tenants to vote on how the front cover should look. We got them to be involved in the content of it, right down to the name, involving tenants improving services. They named that as well. So it's very much a two-way engaging with tenants to get. It's a kind of two-way partnership for us to work with them and them to kind of work with us. I touched on this earlier, NL and Bloom. This is our garden awards. So a wee picture of the awards, but also we've changed it over the years, and it's got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's a great event, and we have a big celebration event where they come and get their awards. But the top picture that you see at the bus, this is members of North Lanarkshire Federation. Every garden that's entered, we go through a shortlisting process, and then the ones that are shortlisted, we then go out and visit every single garden, and it's the tenants that pick the winners. So it's very much for tenants by tenants, and I think that kind of makes it all the more powerful. And it's a great event, and we've got members of the North Lanarkshire Federation. They come along to the award ceremony as well. And it's just like Emma was saying, this is just another way of engaging with tenants, but it's not necessarily about forming a tenants and residents group, but also kind of helps improve the area. And if other people see people taking care of their gardens, hopefully it kind of encourages other people. So that's a big thing that we took on board when we started. And and now every year we kind of just grow it every year. We have a menu of opportunities to get involved. So people can come just for one thing that they're interested in. Maybe it might just be scrutiny, it might be a community event, or they can come to absolutely everything. And I think that's what works. We have a database of interested individuals and groups. So anytime we've got anything on, we make sure we contact them. We're able to do the mass texting, mass emailing, social media. We basically make sure we're advertising everything as much as we can. But I think the fact that people can dip in and out of the different menu opportunities, that really works. And sometimes they might just come for one thing, but because they've enjoyed it, they'll start coming for more and more. And then maybe they might look at getting a group in their area, something like that. But it's very much about kind of choice. We update this regularly, and we work with tenants groups to find out what they want, and we'll very much update what we have in offer for tenants to get involved. A commitment for North Lanarkshire Council is that every locality will run quarterly chairpersons meetings. So this is where housing management will meet with reps from each of the tenants and residents groups. And that's very much to kind of deal with issues in their area, but also it's about kind of peer learning as well and sharing best practice. So it's really great to get everybody around the table. So although the tenant participation team will help facilitate that and make sure groups are aware of it, it's very much led by the housing localities, and they get a chance to kind of share any grievances, I suppose, they may have with our housing manager, and it gets it action. So during the kind of COVID period, these chairpersons meetings stalled. So as of December 2022, meetings resumed in each of the localities. We encourage tenants reps from every group to attend. Where there is no active group in an area, we have an agreement that interested individuals can also attend. So we have some very active individuals in a particular area, but there just maybe isn't a need for a group, or there isn't the appetite for a group. So these individuals are also able to come to what we call the chairpersons meetings, and they're able to kind of get any issues resolved. Then the chair of North Lanarkshire Federation and the TP team are also in attendance. So again, it's about that sharing best practice and just kind of working together to get the best outcomes. And during that, we agree on a locality action plan, and it gets worked through throughout the course of the meeting and throughout the course of the year. So there's very much a plan for the year ahead each of the meetings. And the bit highlighted green, the database review was a really important exercise to ensure that the right people were in attendance. Because we were trying to pick this back up after COVID, we didn't know who we were going to be left with. We didn't know if groups were still in existence. We didn't know if there was still a need. So very much kind of doing the initial engagement, doing the database review, making sure we knew what was left with, I suppose, and then establishing brand new groups is a really important exercise. And again, it's about that sharing, because then the locality offices know if there's any new groups, to make sure the new groups are invited. So these run quarterly, and we also have a commitment to do joint tenant and staff training once a year. So we do joint tenant and staff training, and it looks at reviewing the chairpersons meetings, see what works, what doesn't work, and make sure everybody's just kind of aligned and working for the right outcome. We have a different, every year basically have a programme of events, and we update this on social media, on our webpage. The slide is really just a kind of wee snapshot of some of the things, but again, it changes depending on any particular consultations or anything that's coming up. But this is just a wee kind of snapshot of some of the things that we arrange and we get involved in, and where tenants can get involved in. So NL and Bloom, the actual competition runs from April to August. Emission subgroup, waste management subgroup. Just recently we did a info session to help do a response from North Lanarkshire tenants. For the Scottish Housing Regulator was doing a consultation. And the 4th of November, we also, the scrutiny group did a peer learning trip So we went and met with Fife tenant participation team and their scrutiny group to kind of share best practices. And that's something I think we'll continue to do. We also had the award ceremony for NL Bloom, and then just a week ago, we had our annual tenants conference, which over 150 tenants attended, and 99% had said it was good or very good. So we get really great feedback for that. And during the conference, we find what type of things tenants is interested in, and then that helps us plan what we'll put on for the year ahead. So we very much kind of work towards a programme of events that tenants can dip into the web page, or they can, it's always advertised, and we're constantly updating that so as they can kind of get involved in all different things. That was something we'd done. It was just last year, but we're actually doing another one tomorrow. We did a cost of living event, just kind of given what's happening in the country. We got different kind of organisations that could help our tenants to help, like debt advice, maximising income. We got energy advice, and this is something that went down really well, and a lot of people got a lot of help from it. So we're making that an annual thing now as well. So it's very much kind of looking at what the need is and how we can support our tenants. Tenant scrutiny, as I said earlier, since 2018, where we became in-house, tenant scrutiny has been independent. And these are just some of the scrutinies that we've done since 2018. So allocations, housing review account, reporting a repair, tenants grants, complaints, communication, and retirement housing. And the retirement housing one we're looking at, that has took a kind of different focus. When we started looking at retirement housing, there was a lot of issues getting raised that probably wasn't the best fit for scrutiny. So that's why we're looking at having a standalone subgroup for retirement housing. So as reps for retirement housing can come and kind of raise their issues and look at that and focus on that. But the actual retirement housing scrutiny is looking at technology within retirement housing complexes to enable tenants to stay in their homes for longer. So that's got a very much, kind of focus. But from that, it's made us look at, right, we've got a group that we should be establishing as well. And the tenant scrutiny contract, that will always remain independent. So we've got a great kind of working relationship. And our team is very much the kind of middleman. So we help support the tenants and support the scrutiny group for whatever they need, and whatever staff info they need, we can give them that as well. We also have a commitment to do tenant walkabouts. We do a minimum, each group is allowed or permitted, I suppose, to have a minimum of 2 walkabouts a year. Should they wish for more, we're more than happy to do that as well. But we tend to do one kind of spring and one autumn time, and that's kind of, it's about the environment in which they live in, because it's the start of like the growing season and the kind of start of the leaves falling and things like that. So this is just a quote for one of our walkabouts. Although it's led by the TP team and housing staff, depending on the issues in an area, we may bring external partners, so roads or police or antisocial, depending on what the actual need of the area is. We'll try and bring our partners along. If they don't come to the actual walkabout, any actions from the walkabout, or the housing staff and the TP staff will make sure it gets linked in with the relevant staff. So this is just a wee quote for one of our tenants from a retirement housing complex about the walkabout they had. So John said he was absolutely delighted. He advised that Jim actioned all of his issues immediately, and there has been teams of men working the area. He stated it is now looking first class. The entire group is delighted, and this has also helped motivate them more as a group, as they've now seen firsthand the positive results from engaging with locality staff. So this is just some of our achievements and challenges over the past years. So we've continued to increase tenant satisfaction based upon the Scottish Housing Charter indicators. And we're sitting kind of well above the average, which is great. But again, it's about us maintaining that and keeping that continuity. We also did, one of our scrutinies looked at tenants grants, and that's the tenants grants that we supplied for our registered groups. And tenant scrutiny looked at what we give them, what it can be used for. They looked at everything, and from that, a few new grants actually has been developed. So the TP admin grant at the top, that used to be £400. The scrutiny group agreed that it should rise to £500 per year, and that's to be used for things like paper, printing, teas, coffees, anything they need to run their group, might be hiring a room, etc. But we also introduced a brand new TP events grant, and groups can apply up to £500 per year. But there's a few conditions added to that. It's got to be a TP event as a means to engaging. So if the group want to put on some sort of event or some sort of activity as a means to engaging with their wider community to get the word out about TP and the word out about their group, we can help fund part of that. But a condition of that is they need to be working alongside the TP officer to do that. And that was just a way of kind of making sure we had that kind of joint working a bit better, but also it came about because we recognised some of the kind of more social type things was a good hook to get people out and just to kind of encourage people to get out of the house, especially after COVID. And we also have a TP discretionary fund, and this can be used if groups can come to us with a kind of particular need. So it might be that a group is needing a laptop or something like that. Depending on what the need is, we can look at it. But before we make any decision with the discretionary fund, we would go to the board of North Lanarkshire Federation, and it would be very much a joint decision. So having these grants available very much kind of helps us support what our groups do, but it kind of helps that joint working as well. And this was very much an agreement that was brought on by our tenants that are on the scrutiny panel. So some of our achievements, we have 2 tower blocks that is home to our Ukrainian tenants. We have just under 200 Ukrainian tenants. And our first conference back after COVID, we welcomed a group of COVID residents to our conference, and actually we got one of them to be a guest speaker about their experiences from moving to Scotland. And actually from that, they've came to loads of different events. They come to every conference. Another achievement is we are continuing to support the inception of new groups, one of which is we've got a Ukrainian tenants and residents group, and they're a year in existence, and they've managed to get a lot of kind of external funding to help support Ukrainian kids and art projects, and what they're doing is just amazing, and they continue to work with TP team. We continue to support our existing groups as well. We've increased our programme of events and our training opportunities, so we're continuing to just kind of look at what tenants need, what their aspirations are, and trying to support that. We've increased our positive online presence. We really upped the ante with our online presence during COVID, just as a means of communication, and just kind of getting our name out there. And we've just continued to do that, and we're trying kind of different means to engage. We continue to support tenant scrutiny. During the course of this year, actually, we worked with tenants reps. We had joint tenant staff training to develop a robust code of conduct. And the idea is that a lot of our tenants and residents groups will then adopt this code of conduct, which actually some have already started doing, given the fact that it was co-produced. We continue to be a central point of contact between tenants and NLC. So I think tenants very much know they can come to us, but then we might not be able to fix it, but I always say we'll know a man that can, so we'll then go to our colleagues, whether it be internal or external. So we very much are the kind of central point of contact. We continue to plan big and small scale events. With our biggest being our annual tenants conference and our NL and Bloom Garden competition. Each year tenant involvement is increasing. We run a minimum of 4 food for thought sessions a year that can be all different topics. any consultation events, we run open meetings, again, the conferences. In 2021, we won Best Frontline Housing team, and that was based on the work that we did during COVID about helping the community assistance helpline and the homeless helpline. So recognise the kind of work of the team, but also supporting other teams. And partly why we're here today, we managed to get gold rating for our TP accreditation, which I'll go on to speak about. And then just throughout this year, we've worked with our tenants and residents group. We've done a big series of consultation events and very much co-producing a brand new TP strategy, which will be from 2025 to 2030. So this photograph here, this is just some of our Ukrainians that came to our first conference. And this is Olga, who she does a lot of interpretation for the tenants. And actually, when we went to set up our tenants and residents group, any literature we had about kind of setting up a group, everything she translates for us. So any flyers we're putting through the door, so she's very much a kind of adopted member of the TP team now as well, which has been a great asset for us, and we're able to kind of support the wider community. And again, the TP accreditation, so just a wee bit about that. It's always been on our to-do list to try and get some sort of accreditation, but we always had another pressing priority. As I say, we are only 6 years in North Lanarkshire Council, so it was very much about kind of trying to embed and kind of get the buy-in for tenants with a big kind of shift with coming in-house. And then obviously we had COVID, and then it was about trying to rebuild for COVID. So it never ever seemed like the right time. And then at the start of this year, we were like, right, we need to just look at this. And partly so because we knew we were going to be developing the new TP strategy. So we felt that any feedback we get from doing the accreditation could help align with the new strategy, and we could kind of take that on board. So just as Emma was saying, it was a monster piece of work, because everything I've just mentioned today about all the different things to get involved, you were scared when you were doing the accreditation, when you were writing the self-assessment, that you were going to miss something, and so you felt that you had to kind of mention absolutely everything. So I think again I think it was bigger than a dissertation, put it that way, and the amount of support and evidence we gave them. But we did all that, and then Tony, who gave us the award, he came to our conference to present us with the award. He was very much a kind of good support to us, and then he came out and he met with a group of our tenants, he met with staff, he met with elected members, and then the panel kind of reviewed everything. So it's a big process. Even the self-assessment, that was kind of good at looking what we do and kind of looking at what we could do better. And now, obviously, we're very, very happy we got gold, but we've got that feedback to now look at and kind of help develop our future plans as well. So some of the challenges we've had, I've kind of spoke about all the kind of positives and how well we've done, but we have had a lot of challenges to get here. As I say, we are only 6 years in-house. Managing the transition from being an external service to delivered in-house, that was quite a challenge at the start, because I think people were a bit kind of reluctant, a bit kind of suspicious, because they kind of felt, would we lose that independence? And it's very much about kind of trying to build your tenants' trust and no make any changes overnight. We had to kind of slowly kind of get tenants on board with any kind of potential changes we were looking at. A huge thing for us when I was reflecting on doing this presentation was we actually, due to COVID, we lost 3 years of a 5-year strategy. So we did a huge piece of work to develop what was our strategy just now. But 3 years out of that 5 that we had all the plans to launch it and all this, we kind of lost 3 years. And then before you know it, in 2024, we're now looking at developing a new strategy. So we kind of felt like we kind of lost a huge chunk of that time. So we've kind of we've actually kept a lot of the kind of items that was in the strategy, in the new strategy, given that, because we feel that we didn't have the kind of a good shot at it. Another challenge is kind of managing expectations and demand. A lot of our kind of tenants groups, obviously, some tenants groups are born out of frustration, or they're born out of maybe issues in their community. And it's not always a quick fix, and it's about kind of getting them on board, but managing their expectations, but also making them be proud of sometimes small wins is good as well. We've had a lot of new groups over the past year or so, past 18 months, with a lot of new groups, which is great, but new groups tend to need a lot more intensive support. So that's a kind of a bit of a challenge about managing time. Managing the balance between supporting your new groups but also supporting your existing groups, because you don't want to forget the groups that have been there for a long time. So it's trying to kind of balance that, and the different events that you're putting on. So very much kind of a balancing act. And in resources, at times we've been a victim of our success because we do a good job and we do it well. You're kind of very much on demand, and now we get a lot of different elected members, a lot of external partners coming to us and saying, "Oh, I think a group could be good in this area, or there's a need here." So we're very much on demand, but there still is there was 4 years up until a couple of months ago. There still is a very small team that deal with a big, massive area. So we're kind of, resources has been a challenge as well. So having to.
So accidentally muted you. 2 seconds. It's my fault. I've accidentally muted you. I'm trying to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry. I went to unmute myself to give you a minute warning that we need.
Right.
Yeah, there we are. You're back.
That's
Sorry, my fault.
I'm literally nearly finished anyway. So when looking at kind of everything we do, and you look at best practice, I kind of thought, well, what works well for us? And what really works well is we have buy-in for all levels. So, we have head of housing, we have chief execs, elected members. We have them kind of at our disposal if we need them. If we say, can you come to a meeting, they'll come. Believe it or not, the support we gave other services during COVID, it helped us build up relationships that would have probably took years and years to build. So people then got to know other departments that we were working with, got to know what we did. So it meant when we were recovering, we were able to link in. We've got a positive reputation with all the different work we do. Small wins, I think the small wins definitely work. So the walkabout example that I shared, having a small win means people are got that trust in you, and then they'll come back to you and they kind of see that it makes a difference. We do have a strong tenant participation movement in North Lanarkshire, which pre my time, as I say, North Lanarkshire Federation is 16 years in existence, but they were going for a long time before they kind of became a federation. We've very much got a can-do attitude. What we need to do, we do. We're a central point of contact. And as I said earlier, one size doesn't fit all. We've got the menu opportunities that people can dip in, dip out. I think that really works. And I think for us as well, we work with anybody. You don't need to be a registered tenants association. If you're a group, you're an individual, we will work with anybody just to kind of help improve the area. And we're future plans. So we want groups to adopt the code of conduct. We'll continue to work with our groups, continue to develop and improve our joint tenant staff training, planning lots of meaningful engagement events. It needs to be meaningful. Continue to support the Federation to achieve objectives in their business plan. We're looking at new subgroups. We plan to do a series of launch events in April 25 for our new TP strategy. We're going to review and action the feedback for TP accreditation, continue to plan our events, and continue to be a central point of contact, and just continue to do what we do. So thank you, and I hope I didn't bore you too much.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. That was quite a lot to take in there. It was good. I've had a request private message saying, can we share any slides? I just want to ask Emma and yourself if that's possible. I've got Emma's, but Tracy, if I could have yours, I know there's some requests, people to go through it. afterwards and learn from it. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to quickly go up to the questions. I'm going to just read some of them out quickly rather than going around the table. The first one I had, I think, was from Anne at Swansea, where she was talking about lots of people come to individual events, but struggle to encourage people to get involved on a regular basis. Can I ask my two panelists if you've got any thoughts or tips on how do you convert the one-offs to regulars? Don't know who wants to go first, Tracy or Emma?
I think it will depend. I think it will depend on what people are interested in, and so it probably is best to get them involved in a one-off thing first. So I complained about the antisocial behaviour in my area. I've been prepared to then take that to the next stage to say I'll be on a antisocial behaviour task and finish group about it. But then if you send them the information about this topic may also be of interest, would you be able to do a task and finish that, or sort of follow up with other things that might be of interest? They might bite more than once, but I do think it's important to try and that they're interested in. So it could be, as I say, arising from a complaint, or the fact that there's been a resident group in that area have been complaining about the traffic and or whatever it is, to try and then get them hooked in.
Okay. Sorry, Tracy, I muted you again. There seems to be a clash between you being on and Emma being on. I don't know why. Yeah.
And so I would mirror what Emma said, and I think it's really about kind of keeping the communication up. So if they've came to you for a particular subject, see, even if you don't have an answer, let's say if you don't have a resolve, but keep that right, I'm still working on it. If you build up that trust, and then you can start encouraging more and more. And if they feel, if somebody feels comfortable going to that one thing, then you can try and encourage it, I think. But once they come to us, we don't let them go.
Okay.
I think there is a social aspect actually for some. So once they've come, then it's like, I've made my friends as part of this. I want to continue this as part of a group. So I think there is a social aspect. I was intrigued by what Tracy called food for thought, in case that was literally food for thought, because we have been as base as, let's do chat and chips. We'll bring this chip butty van to your locality. Come and have some free chips, and we'll discuss things. So sometimes it is a social element as well that keeps people engaged.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, food for thought does have food. So we have the session, and then we bribe them with food after it. So yeah.
Okay. Darren's asked a question over that about training for staff to engage with tenants and stuff. Is that how do you make sure that you have great tenant focused, tenant listening staff? Is anybody?
In terms of training, actually, there's quite a range of things for staff. So ranging from like the equalities and diversity stuff to things like loan working, because quite often we will be sending them out or sending them to a tenant's home or whatever. But it is then stuff like listening skills, what we call dealing with difficult situations where somebody's very upset, heightened emotions about a particular topic. And so we tend to do training on that kind of thing for staff.
Good. Is there anything, Tracy, you want to add?
Yeah, similar. We have in-house, we have a lot of mandatory courses that staff need to do. But our team's working with the Housing Solutions Department to develop training for new staff, so induction and refreshers, especially on tenant participation, because I think sometimes it could be a forgotten subject. So we're trying to make that kind of embedded into what all housing staff do, and the fact we've got the buy-in for kind of senior management, that really does help as well. Excellent.
There was also a question about tenant response rates. I think Taryn asked about 25% in my area seems good, or what is a good response rate? Because my view is always you get the two ends of it. You get the very unhappy and very happy people, and then that whole middle people who are just indifferent are the people who don't respond. But that's my personal view on it. Is there any?
We get a real range. 25% is generally quite good. It depends how targeted you're being. Interestingly enough, dogs, anything we need to ask about dogs, loads more response rate on that. dogs in flats. Everyone's got something to say. We do have a database, and obviously the more targeted we are in terms of, we know you were interested in X, we're interested in the green space before it, that then the more likely people are to answer. We also have tried to do a few more Vox Pop style things recently as well. So, social media, literally, or I mentioned about notifying the text messaging. There is a response service available as part of that as well. So literally.
Oh, I was completely gone there. I mean, totally.
Those kind of Vox Pops where you literally have to press one button on your phone or whatever, they sometimes attract a better response rate than a full survey.
Okay, that's great. Tracy, anything to add? I'm just conscious we're running over time now, so is there anything you have in your response rates, or?
I think it depends the topic. If it's something they're interested in, I would love 25% is brilliant, but again, if it's something they're really passionate about, you'll get it, and it's about trying all different means of engagement as well.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. There were some things about gardens and things like that. I think a number of people commenting on the gardens in the chat there. I'm just conscious. I do try and have things to finish on time. Lots to take in here. I hope you found this interesting. I've certainly got lots of notes down here that I've been writing. I've actually been teams in my team as well at the same time on a couple of things here. I think I'd like to say a big thank you to Emma and Tracy. I think they've brought two different perspectives to and similarities and about what makes it. It's about that engagement. It's about empowering. Co-production came up a couple of times, wasn't it? Tracy, you were talking about co-producing the code of conduct. Still amazed by how many local groups exist as well, because we see mixed things on that. But I think Emma and Tracy, you've really given us some food for thought on this. Thank you. I think if there's anything else, Vicky Shenton just saying the same thing. Great speakers, really inspired us, and really thank you, Anne. We'll share the slides. We'll share the video link as well. If there's anyone in your organisation who you think should have seen this, we'll get it to Powys as well. We're on their away day, Christmas jolly, but I'm sure it's a productive away day. So we'll get it to them. And thank you both. Thank you everyone else for all the comments in there, Darren, and everybody who's helped make this conversation. So thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Cheers. I will stop the recording.